The prophet, our brother Marcus Garvey, paving the way for the prophet. Honors to all the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America and to all you faithful Muslims on the call tonight, peace and blessings. A divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and the principles that delude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to that state of mind to their forefathers' divine and national principles, that they will be law abiders and receive their divine right as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish Divine National Movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights, unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government, and not under a granted privilege as has been the existing condition for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they're glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It is the free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. Excuse me. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I'm hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of the government. I'm depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. I love my people and I desire their unity and mine back to their own free national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and the South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. So there is but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do herein believe that this administration of the government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding, they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they have fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and have examined the conditions there. And it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I'm hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light. From the prophet, Islam, Islam, Islamism. Happy Holy Day, Muslims.
Gratitude, brother, and happy Holy Day, Islam. You know what? One thing when you're reading the divine warning and the prophet is mentioning finance, right? I want to tell you, I want to just hit on why the prophet mentions that. Hang on one second, Morris. All right, if you can turn in the Moorish, in our Moorish literature, turn to Moorish Leaders' Historical Message to America. Let's look at that briefly. We're not going to read the whole thing, so I advise everyone to go back and read over the entire article later on. But this is important because this was actually written and published by our prophet, okay? This specific one is signed Noble Drew Ali. So hang on, Morris, we're going to find that in here. It's Moorish Leaders' Historical Message to America. Okay, so we're going to skim through this in connection with the aims, objects, rules, and regulations of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I deem it proper to submit to you a brief statement of our organization covering its inception, rise, and progress, and of the Mohammedan religion, which I hope will be satisfactory to you. And I'm going to skip down. Okay, the end of that same paragraph, though, in closing, he says, I further most anxiously hope this brief statement will help you to more clearly see the duty and wisdom of at all times upholding those fundamental principles which are desired for our civilization and our posterity, such as obedience to law, respect and loyalty to government, tolerance and unity. Of course, we're not anti-government because our ancestors created civilization. The object of our organization is to help in a great program of uplifting fallen humanity and teach those things necessary to make our members better citizens. Skipping down again. Since the work of the Moorish Science Temple of America was largely religious, the organization has been legally changed to a religious corporation, and an affidavit to this effect has been properly filed in the Cook County Recorder's Office in Illinois. So why is he talking about money, right? It's a religious organization. Inspired by the lofty teachings of the Koran, we have it as the revealed word of Allah. We shall foster the principles of its teachings among our members. This is our religious privilege as American citizens under the laws of one of the greatest documents of all time, the American Constitution. It's one of the greatest documents of all time. Remember, that's based off of the Great Law of Peace from the Iroquois Federation. Skipping down more, he's speaking about the ancient Moors, the Mohammedans, Muslim, Saracen, Mohammedan, all means more, okay? Speaking about the greatness that our people have done, which is something that was needed. We needed to hear this and understand this. It's still necessary today. The Quran should be of interest to all readers. It is the Bible of the Mohammedans, ruling over the customs and actions of over 200 millions of people. Okay. But I wanted to point out something in particular. Okay. Now, some of you have heard this before, but this needs to be understood. In connection with our religious aims and beliefs, right? This is a part of our religion. We must promote what? Economic security. This is a part of our religion. The preaching of economic security among us is by no means as widespread and intensive as the circumstances demand. So this isn't being taken out of context, right? We're not doing it enough. You know, we need to increase our economic security. This is important. No other one thing is more needed among us at this time than greater economic power. There's nothing by itself that's more important, right? Because, you know, on one hand, right, we suffer morally, spiritually, right? But largely our problems are economic. So there's no one thing that's more needed among us at this time than greater economic power. It was true then, and it's especially true now, because in the 1920s, our people actually, percentage-wise, owned more land than we do now, right? So more of us were growing food and things that we need. Okay, so just skipping down a little bit more. We shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power. This is a portion of our religion in connection with our religious aims and beliefs. We shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power. A beggar people cannot develop the highest in them, right? There's no pride in being poor. It's, oh, we're spiritual. No, it prevents us from being able to reach our potential, because we got to survive out here. Nor can they attain to a genuine enjoyment of the spiritualities of life. So this is important because this is written by our prophet. We cannot leave this out. He says also, read carefully the doctrines of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It contains our hopes, aims, rules, and articles of religion. Every member should have a copy. So, you know, people, everybody's not, some people are skipping over this part, right? But the prophet said it again. The problems of life are largely social and economic, right? Socially suffering because we're not in power politically, right? And that has to do with economics too. They're tied into each other. So socially and economically, right? That's why. In a profound sense, they are moral and spiritual, okay? But for the most part, and then this is from Noble Drew Ali. So this can't be left out. This is a big portion of why we're in the position that we're in, even still to this day, okay? And so that's what it's about. We have to build up our economics. We're supposed to be practicing group economics, building businesses, eventually industry, okay? We're not just coming together just to philosophize over things, right? This is a portion of our religion. It can't be left out. Okay, just wanted to hit on that. Just in case anybody feels some kind of way when it says finance and stuff like that. It's like, no, we have to do this. This is a part of our religion. Okay, so let's we're gonna be going over chapter 37 in the Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam, hang on one second. All right, Islam Moors. So yeah, we're gonna be going over chapter 37. Okay, holy instructions from the prophet, the breath of heaven. And you already know, you see that breath of heaven, you know, we're talking about the holy breath, right? And so what we're gonna do, we'll read over this and then we will go back over the verses. And of course, the floor will be open to anyone who wants to add to the measure. Anyone has any questions or anything else they would like to share. Let's go ahead and get started now. All right. Okay, holy instructions from the prophet, the breath of heaven. Vaunt not thy body, because it was first formed, nor of thy brain, because therein thy soul resideth. Is not the master of the house more honorable than its walls? The ground must be prepared before corn be planted. The potter must build his furnace before he can make his porcelain. As the breath of heaven saith unto the waters of the deep, this way shall thy billows roll, and no other. Thus high and no higher shall they raise their fury. So let thy spirit, O man, actuate and direct thy flesh. So let it repress its wilderness. The body is as the globe of the earth. Thy bones, the pillars that sustain it on its basis. As the ocean giveth rise to springs, whose waters return again into its bosom through the rivers, so runneth thy life from thy outwards, and so runneth it into its place again. Do not both retain their course forever? Behold, the same Allah ordained them. Is not thy nose the channel to perfumes, thy mouth the path to delicacies? Are not thine eyes the sentinels that watch for thee? Yet how often are they unable to distinguish truth from error? Keep thy soul in moderation. Teach thy spirit to be attentive to its good. So shall these its ministers be always to the conveyances of truth. Thine hand is it not a miracle? Is there in the creation aught like unto it? Wherefore was it given thee? But that thou mightest stretch it out to the assistance of thy brother. Why of all things living art thou alone capable of blushing? The world shall read thy shame upon thy face, therefore do nothing shameful. Fear and dismay, which robs thy countenance of its ruddy splendor. Avoid guilt, and thou shalt know this, that fear is beneath thee, that dismay is unnamely. Wherefore to thee alone speak shadows in the vision of the pillow. Reverence them, for know that dreams are from on high. Thou man alone canst speak. Wonder at thy glorious prerogative and pay to him who gave it to thee a rational and welcome praise, teaching thy children wisdom, instructing the offspring of thy loins in piety. Okay, Islam. Let's go back up to verse 1. All right. And just once again, holy instructions from the prophet, the breath of heaven. So you know automatically we're speaking about the breath of Allah. We're speaking about the holy breath. What do we know about the holy breath? It's truth. It's aught. Aught is Allah. We know that it's everlasting. So when we're talking about the breath of heaven, we're speaking about the spirit of Allah. Okay, this is Allah speaking to man or speaking through man. All right, it's everlasting life. Islam. Okay, so vaunt not thy body, because it was first formed, nor of thy brain, because therein thy soul resideth. Is not the master of the house more honorable than its walls? Right? So we're being given, like, you know, we're getting pulled to the side and given a heads up on, you know, where our attention should be at. Right? The master of the house, right? That's the one who has the authority. That's the one who has control. So the question is rhetorical. It's like, we already know the answer, right? Is not the master of the house more honorable than its walls? Of course, the answer is yes. Right? The master is spirit man. And in this case, when it's talking about the walls of the house, right, it's speaking about not necessarily the body, it's speaking about the soul. When it's speaking about the house, it's speaking about the soul. And then when it's speaking about the walls, right, is not the master of the house more honorable than his walls? Then it's speaking about the body, the flesh. So you have the master, the house, and the walls. That's spirit man, soul, and flesh. All right. So this is letting you know, like, when we go back to chapter 1, let's go back to chapter 1. But man himself is not the body nor the soul. That's why we're looking at that, right? So there's a separation here. Okay, not only are you not the body, but the soul is individualized, and it's not the all of what you are or what you truly are. We're getting back to spirit, right? So spirit man is a seed of Allah, held deep within him the attributes of every part of Allah. Right? Now, seed are perfect, yea, as perfect as the source from which they come. Okay, so we're getting back to this, the source, right? You're not the body nor the soul. Okay, so the master of the house, spirit man, that's Allah in man. Let the spirit, O man, actuate and direct thy flesh. This is the command we're given. Okay, let the spirit actuate and direct thy flesh. Also, it's a reminder, we say this a lot around here, but it's just another reminder that we need to raise our thoughts up to infinite wisdom. And we always, as Moorish Americans, as Muslims, we need to keep that in mind, raising our thoughts to infinite wisdom. Okay, there's more to you than meets the eye. The ground must be prepared before corn be planted. The potter must build his furnace before he can make his porcelain. All right. So the ground, you know, has to be prepared. It has to be made ready. The potter, you know, is the one who's actually making the end result that you see. Right. So we're just being reminded again of the source. Okay. And to keep that in mind, right? It's Holy Day. To keep that in mind, the source. And as far as we're concerned, spirit man inside of you, and to raise our thoughts to infinite wisdom. All right, to keep our thoughts on high, vibrating at a higher rate. Okay, and not to get so caught up in what we see in front of us. All right, because to remember, these things that we see, all of these things are finite, right? They have a beginning and an end. Okay, as the breath of heaven saith unto the waters of the deep. And if anybody has anything else or anything you'd like to say, just feel free to jump in. All right. But as the breath of heaven saith unto the waters of the deep, this way shall thy billows roll and no other. thus high and no higher shall they raise their fury. So let thy spirit, O man, actuate and direct thy flesh. So let it repress its wilderness. Okay. And then here we're saying actuate. That's putting into motion. Okay. So the spirit, man, that's the thought of Allah. That's Allah in us. That's what's actually motivating and moving and directing everything. And this is what we want to be guided by, right? We want the flesh to be guided by the soul by way of the spirit. Because if we're raising our thoughts up to infinite wisdom, if we're always keeping this in mind, you know, as often as we can, I know people, we fall off, but if we're working and striving to keep our thoughts on high, spirit, man, will never lead you astray. It won't. You know why? It's the higher self. It's Allah and man. And you know, when we say man, we're talking about man and woman. So if we're raising our thoughts on high, that's the motivation for us, right? We got to dangle a carrot out in front of us to get us to move in the right direction. That's the carrot. It's dangling in front of us. If we raise our thoughts up to infinite wisdom, we can't go wrong. We can't. It's Allah and man. So sometimes you might even have like a little urge to do something or to go this way or that way. And it's like, you know, people say it's their conscience speaking to you. And it's like so easy to ignore it. Okay, but that's the higher self nudging you in the right direction. But we need to raise our thoughts up so that this is what we're moving from. Okay, success is guaranteed. The spirit man, Allah in you, the higher self, all the same thing. It's not going to lead you astray. It will never lead you astray. And so this is why it's saying, so let thy spirit, O man, actuate and direct thy flesh. So let it repress its wilderness. The wilderness, of course, that's the carnal nature. And the carnal nature is unrestricted. It's undisciplined and unrestrained, and also lacking reason or prudence. It's uncultured. That's the carnal self, the carnal mind, the body, just specifically the body. The body has its own consciousness, its own mechanisms, and it has its purpose. Like we're not supposed to be like Brother Jackson Bey. He always pull out the example of the monks who whip themselves, right? Because they're subduing the lower self. And so physically, they're actually beating themselves. Okay. And so the reason I brought that example up is because that's not how we view the lower self. Even though in our questionnaire, one of the names that we have for the lower self is Satan. Well, actually Satan, devil, dragon, and beast, right? None of those names sound good. But the only reason those are the names for the lower self is because the lower self is not supposed to be in control. It's not supposed to be the head honcho. It's not supposed to be the boss man. It's not supposed to be running the show, okay? So that's the only reason why it would be referred to by those names. It's actually supposed to be a servant. And it's a servant to who? Our higher nature, our higher self, spirit man, Allah and man. And when it's in its proper place, then it's no longer Satan, devil, dragon, and beast. So that's what this is all about. All right. And then well, it says verse 5 here, but that's actually verse 4. Thy body is as the globe, as the globe of the earth. Thy bones, the pillars that sustain it on its basis. Okay. And so we're given like a physical embodiment, right? Comparing us, how we work to nature, right? And this is the same attributes that we have as the planet, just like the globe, the earth is like 70-something% water, and our bodies have the same composition. All right. So even in studying nature, we can see these higher principles of what we're made of, what we're composed of, and also the true nature that we have, like how we're supposed to conduct ourselves in our thoughts, actions, and deeds, right? Moving on to this is actually verse 5. It says 6 in here, but as the ocean giveth rise to springs, whose waters return again into its bosom through the rivers, so runneth thy life from thy outwards, and so runneth it into its place again. All right. So everything always returns to the source. Always. Do not both retain their course forever? Behold, the same Allah ordained them. Right? So everything always, regardless of what path, what direction is going on, the course, it always returns back to the source. And it was ordained. Like, ordained means destined. It's ordained to happen. That's also in chapter 1 when it speaks about the creation and fall of man. No matter how, what path we're on right now, right? You could be out in the streets getting high, robbing folks, you could be in prison right now, literally. But it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah. And while Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have full opened out. It says when, not if. Okay, the garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will never need it more, will need it nevermore, and it will pass and be no more. Man will attain into the blessedness of perfectness and at one with Allah. Okay, and so this is the destiny for all of us, and it's been ordained, right? But that's also not an excuse to be like, well, I could go and do whatever I want. Eventually, I'm gonna figure it out, right? If you have this understanding, and especially if you have this understanding and you see how most of the people around you aren't even on this path, that means that you have a purpose, right? You have to strive to raise your thoughts to infinite wisdom. That's what we all have to do. This is a blessing, even to be on this path, to be thinking on this level right now. Moving on. And then also, I don't want to just be up here just running my mouth. Like, if anybody has any questions, or if you would like to share anything, feel free to speak up. If I don't see you, you can just press a button and raise your hand. So moving on. Is not thy nose the channel to perfumes? Thy mouth the path to delicacies? Hang on. All right. Are not thine eyes the sentinels that watch for thee? Yet how often are they unable to distinguish truth from error? Okay, so these things are blessings, right? Right, our nose, and it's speaking about the good things. You can smell perfumes, perfumes. Back in the day, well, you still have people to do that, but where they extract the fluids, like the oils, the natural oils from flowers and spices and stuff, to get these smells, right? These good smells. So it's letting you know, oh, the nose, you can smell all of these wonderful things. The mouth, the path to delicacies, right? The eyes, they protect you. They're sentinels, right? The sentinels stand guard, they protect, they keep watch, right? But no matter how wonderful they are, they're things to be grateful for. Every day we should give thanks for these things that we might take for granted. But they still, the eyes, as great as they are, they're unable to distinguish truth from error several times, right? I mean, I know it's not just me, right? Sometimes they can't see, what's really going on. And the reason is because there's a force, there's a spirit behind it that actuates all of these things, right? So it's telling us not to focus on the body parts, on these physical outward things. Keep thy soul in moderation, right? Don't get so pumped up in that. Keep thy soul in moderation. Teach thy spirit to be attentive to its good. So shall these, its ministers, be always to the conveyances of truth, right? And when it's saying ministers, it's just saying like, okay, we understand that we need to, not get so pumped up in the outer appearance of things, of ourselves, right? We need to be humble. We need to keep our thoughts on high. Know what's actually actuating these things, what's actuating the flesh. Okay? Don't get so pumped up and caught up out here. And then when it's saying teach thy spirit to be attentive to his good, right? To focus on Allah, on Allah within. And these will always be the ministers to be always the conveyances of truth, right? This will keep us on the right path on what's really going on. These conveyances are just vehicles. So when it's saying conveyances of truth, that's teaching us that, even the soul needs to be held in moderation. Okay? The body and the soul. And they need to be checked by the spirit, by Allah within. All right, to focus on the higher meaning of things, right? And so when we're keeping in mind the source behind things, right? It's not just about all of the senses. That's why it's telling you too about the nose, the perfumes, the delicacies, right? All the things you can be out here touching and feeling, tasting, right? That's not what it's about. That's what the lower self is about. It just wants to experience things and just be doing things, and if we're like following the lower self and just eating things that taste good, you're going to be what? Overweight, unhealthy, right? And so it's not about just all of those senses to satisfy the flesh, right? We want to get the higher purpose, the higher meaning of things, right? To see the truth behind them. And that's why it's saying, if we keep our thoughts on high, right? So shall these, its ministers, be always to the conveyances of truth. We keep our thoughts on high. We won't get caught up out here. Okay? Thine hand, is it not a miracle? Is there in the creation aught like unto it? Wherefore was it given thee, but that thou mightest stretch it out to the assistance of thy brother? Right? So it's not just about serving ourselves, right? We really have a higher purpose, and one of those is to be of assistance to each other. And then keep going back into verse 9, keep thy soul in moderation, right? We want to basically moderate what we're feeding the soul, because like we come here to experience all of these things, all right, but ultimately we're here to realize Allah within us, and ultimately to overcome the lower self and return to our source. But if we're coming here and we're getting caught up in all of these things, it could be good, it could be bad, whatever experiences, whatever you feed the soul, it's going to go all out with it, right? So we want to keep thy soul in moderation. And this is why it's saying, teach thy spirit to be attentive to its good, right? So we have to, it's almost like a battle, and, for some of us, it might be more difficult than others, but we have to train ourselves, right? To keep our soul in moderation. All right. One thing I wanted to talk about with this too, though, because it's speaking about moderation, right? This is like the opposite of what's getting pumped and what's being pushed on us from all different directions now, right? Moderation. My wife was just speaking about that earlier, right? Like nowadays, people, you have so many of us just focused on our outward appearance. And now they have all of these platforms for this. Right on here, you see it says Instagram is the most narcissistic social media platform on the planet. Okay. This article, Business Insider, Instagram is a narcissist's dream. And it just goes on talking about the behavior, like talking about human behavior. We see Instagram users who post selfies and groupies as more narcissistic than people who post photos taken by others. And it's just speaking about it. You know, people post pictures all the time when they get likes, want to show progress, show what we're doing. And it just keeps us focused on the wrong things and then wanting validation from each other, wanting to be noticed, or, you know, it's so much going on, right? And it's keeping us from realizing our true purpose or our higher purpose. Okay, and they're not saying any of this to make anyone feel bad for posting online. I mean, you know, it's all good, but these are things that keep us stuck. And that also brings up something else too. Let me go back into the Quran. I want to go to chapter 45 real quick. Right. So if we're focused, you know, collectively, if we're focused on, you know, how we look, you know, our hair, right, our body parts, okay, whether we realize it or not, and not putting all of this on us like it's our fault, we're the problem, but whether we realize it or not, we influence the world, right? In the divine origin of the Asiatic nations, chapter 45, the prophet said, the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America, right? This is us, the Asiatic nation of North America, need to learn to love instead of hate and to know of their higher and lower self, right? This is what's being revealed to us. We're being given this knowledge through the Quran and given steps on how to subdue our lower self. But this ain't knowledge that all of us have. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. Right, so he's speaking about the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America. Okay, the key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations, the Moorish, who were ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. So the key of civilization was in our hands. You hear people say that, you know, they have the memes making fun of us, saying we was Kangs, right? Trying to make fun of us because a lot of us say, oh yeah, we were kings, right? So they say that okay, so everybody knows that, even if they act like they don't. They know the key of civilization was in our hands, but the prophet says, and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations. It was in the past and it still is right now. So no matter where we're at, right? If we're the fallen. So if we've fallen, all of humanity is fallen. And that's what most people don't recognize. And that's why the prophet put out the call for everyone to come to assist. If you're true, if you really want, if you're American, or, you know, whatever people need to be motivated by to hear, if you want to do what's right, if you really love Jesus, whatever they needed to hear, he's like, come on and help, right? Because these are the, you know, these are the fallen, and these are the people who have the keys of civilization in their hands right now. Okay, so you can't truly be about righteousness, right, about uplifting, if you don't want to assist, right? And so that's, at the end of the day, that's why things are where they're at. And that's also why, you know, for people that look like us, things will be promoted, like to keep us focused on hair, you know, and you know, body parts. And now they're pumping, you know, getting into surgeries and the, you know, all of these things, you know, just focused on your body, and then apps on your phone, taking pictures, posting, right? To keep us from realizing what we need to, you know? So, and it's holding down all of humanity. Okay, so let's go into Prophet Drew Ali Speaks to the Nations. All right, this is Supreme Words of the Prophet. That's in Moorish literature. It should be one of the first things in there, maybe the second, the third thing in your Moorish literature book. Supreme Words of the Prophet. Oh, excuse me. It's from the previous one. It's Prophet Drew Ali Speaks to the Nations. If you have race pride and love your race, join the Moorish Science Temple of America and become a part of this divine movement. Then you will have power to redeem your race, because you will know who you are and your forefathers were. Because where there is unity, there is strength. Together we stand, divided we fall. Come, good people, because I, the prophet, sent to redeem this nation from mental slavery, which you have now, need every one of you who think that your condition can be better. This is a field open to strong men and women to uplift the nation and take your place in the affairs of men. If the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? It is your problem. The Negro problem is being solved only as it can, and that is by the Moorish Divine National Movement. National Divine Movement. If you have a nation, you must have a free national name in order to be recognized by this nation as an American citizen. This is what was meant when it says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you. Okay, so the prophet is getting us to work on ourselves, right, to uplift ourselves, and to understand what is really ailing us. Okay, and so this is why we see things being promoted to keep us focused on everything that is the opposite of what our holy instructions are, right? Our holy instructions are telling us, want not thy body. Okay, but then we have things pumped at us that make us think that we're supposed to do the exact opposite, and to just be focused on the earthly, the flesh. Okay. Let me see, going back in here though. Why of all living things are thou alone made capable of blushing? The world shall read thy shame upon thy face, therefore do nothing shameful. Fear and dismay, which robs thy countenance of its ruddy splendor. Just speaking on us having, guess what you would call swarthy Moors, you know, being not really being able to tell that we're blushing, but we all blush, whether you realize it or not. And we can avoid guilt. And thou shalt know that fear is beneath thee, that dismay is unnamely, right? By keeping our thoughts on high, by not doing anything that would make us shameful. Okay? It's like, why were we the only ones, humans, that are capable of being shameful? Right? And then also speaking about dreams. Wherefore to thee alone speaks shadows in the vision of the pillow. And this is specifically speaking about receiving, having dreams, and how this is from Allah. It says, reverence them, for know that dreams are from on high. Right? And like, I mean, you know, for the most part, maybe you're dreaming, and maybe you're dreaming about a stressful day, or your dreams influenced by whatever you were doing that day. But also you have dreams that are where you have visions, where, you know, you're receiving advice, and maybe even experiencing things that take place in the future. There's all types of things that happen. For the most part, dreams are something that were given to us, right? Humans, from Allah. It's a gift. Reverence them, for know that dreams are from on high. That's meaning they come from Allah. Thou man alone can't speak, right? Nobody else is able to speak. Wonder at thy glorious prerogative, and pay to him who gave it to thee a rational and welcome praise. Teaching thy children wisdom, and instructing the offsprings of thy loins in piety. And then prerogative, we're saying that wonder at thy glorious prerogative, meaning it's an exclusive right. The ability to speak, it's a privilege. It's exclusive. Like, Allah didn't give this to anyone else. He gave it to man. all right? And we're to use it to praise Allah. And by doing that, by practicing that, we're teaching our children that same wisdom. We're passing it down to them because they're going to do what we do more so than they're going to do what we say. All right. And then this is just giving us the true reason why we're not able to speak so that we can get on YouTube or get on Zoom or, talk and gossip and curse people out. Right. And on that note, I yield the floor. Islam, I see you, sister.
Islam, first I'd like to rise and give praise to Allah, honors to his prophet Noble Drew Ali, and honors to all you Muslims in attendance. I just want to add my portion of my understanding to this chapter because I see a lot of the talk about the unseen energy that is within all of us, and that energy has been called chi, prana, holy breath, but we all understand once we study it, they all have the same function, and so it's all the same thing, just being kind of described in these different ways by different people based on their translated versions, Islam. And when we go back to verse 1, it's letting us know that when we connect to that, when we connect to our natural rhythm, because if we close our eyes in meditation before we get to, I'm gonna say 0, because when I count backwards to 10 and go to 0, that's it. I'm all the way in meditation. But before I get to there, I feel my natural vibrations. I feel the breath. I feel my heart. I feel, I feel my blood, flowing. And that natural energy that's within us is what I'm talking about, is our rhythm. And a lot of people don't quiet themselves down enough to access that natural rhythm. And that's why we speak about meditating, because it is so important in the science of studying self and knowing who you are and how you function to connect with that natural rhythm and that natural energy that's within us all. So it says, do not brag on the flesh, because it's just one part of who we are. The flesh is important, right? It's our skin. It's the biggest organ on our body. It helps us to function on this plane that we're manifested on. It has a function, but it's not the only thing. And this chapter really breaks that down to let us know, your outward appearance shouldn't be your main concern, your main focus. Our brothers and sisters, we like to dress up. We like to, what they call it, look saucy. We like to get the drip. We like to, look fly, with the name brand, Gucci, Jordan, all that from head to toe, putting so much energy in that outward appearance, with the nails and the makeup and the weaves. And it's like you doing all that for other people to see you as something, but you don't do anything for the inside, for your health. You're not exercising, you're not eating right, you're not meditating, you're not studying, you're not learning about your connection to the source and your spirituality. And so we're taking this stuff, like Brother Douglas Sells said, we're taking it too far lower self, because we have to have that balance. And so this chapter, this first verse in this chapter is letting us know, don't focus on that. That's just one part. And then when we jump down to verse 6, it tells us to get in tune with that natural flow and that natural energy that's inside of us. And being a healer, I do energy work. And I know for a fact that I don't even have to touch somebody to feel their energy, to know like that there are blockages that's within them that's causing them to have these problems. Because the blockages of energy that's inside of our bodies, it is detrimental to us, to our beings. It makes us feel bad. You know, it makes us sick. It causes dampness in the body. And that dampness stops the flow of energy. And so we have to, as humans, like we have to move around. We have to keep that blood flowing and that energy going so that we can function at our best. And a lot of people don't understand or don't even know that, because this is not taught to us in school. This is something that we have to start learning and studying on our own. And the prophet just pretty much lays it out here to us with these instructions so that we can study ourselves and know who we are, so that we could function at our best. Because when people feel good, they do good. So when you feel bad, you don't want to do good things. You don't want to be a good person, because you know, like all that is that negative energy is bearing down on you, right? And if you watch a lot of the movies, like the kid movies, like the bully, you know, a lot of times the bully turns into a friend after you get to know them and you see, oh, that he's having it bad at home. That's why he's acting out like this at school. You know? So when you're feeling bad, you do bad things, you know? So we have to understand that it's our duty to understand how we feel and to get our energies and that flow of energy up so that we could be great out here in these streets, right? And then we have to be mindful of these things every day, because it is a balance and it is work. And if we go down to verse 11, it's telling us to be thankful for all of these miracles that are happening inside of us, because you do not tell your lungs to breathe every second. It just happens. You don't tell your heart to pump. It just happens. And those are miracles, because it's happening for you and in you every second of your life, every day, effortlessly. And that's because of the breath of heaven, right? So be thankful for these gifts, because just being alive is a gift, because there's so much going on into keeping you functioning and alive in this world. And if you truly appreciate that, you would do all that you can to keep everything flowing in balance. And we jump down to verse 14. It's telling us to dream big dreams, because what? Allah lives in our imagination. And everything in this world that we use and that we see every day was created from a thought, from the imagination. Okay? The books, the TVs, everything, the monuments, the temples, you know, the pyramids, it all came from a thought. And it was made manifest. And that thought came from where? The mind. And that's where Allah dwells, in your imaginations. So we are encouraged to be creative, to have ideas, you know, to write them down, to plan, to structure these ideas, you know, to develop these ideas, because that's a part of who we are, to be here and to be, you know, doing things from our greatness. And when we do that in righteousness, you know, like we are definitely doing our part in the world and making the world a better place, not only for ourselves, but for everybody who comes after us. Islam, I yield the floor.
Islam, sister, that was very well said. So let's just sum this up. And I'm glad you said that about that first verse. Want not thy body. So these are holy instructions from the prophet, the breath of heaven, speaking about spirit man, alive man. Remember chapters 36 through 39, we're speaking about knowledge of the higher self. Okay, so these are instructions. So the instruction, and this is what I'm taking from it. The instructions we have here, okay, to actuate, to connect, to raise our thoughts to infinite wisdom, to connect to spirit man, we need to humble ourselves, to be more humble. Vaunt not thy body. Vault not. That means to brag, like the sister said, right? So we need to switch our attention. You know, stop wasting energy on these types of things. And this is how we awaken God, man, Allah within us. Keep thy soul in moderation, even thy soul, because the soul can go in either direction. Okay, we need to keep our attention on the holy breath, Allah in us, spirit man. Okay, and then going down here as well. Says in verse 11, avoid guilt, and thou shalt know the fears beneath thee, right? And that guilt just comes from, you know, doing wrong, right? Fear of, you know, fear because we had that emotion because we're expecting something to come from that guilt of not doing what we know is right. That's the only reason why people feel guilty. Basically living a humble life, right? Raising our thoughts up to infinite wisdom, raising our thoughts to on high. We won't even have to deal with the guilt. That won't even be a way of life for us. All right, and then using our ability to speak, to praise Allah. Okay? To keep our thoughts on high, our thoughts, actions, and deeds on high, and basically to stay humble, you know, which is, you know, in many ways it's the opposite of what we're being pushed to do or what we're being encouraged to be. But this is what a true Muslim is. Okay, true Muslim is humble and at least tries our best to keep Allah at the forefront. Okay, and this will guarantee our success in all walks of life. Islam, on that note, I yield the floor. Does anyone else have any questions or anything they'd like to share? Okay. One announce without further ado, we're going to go ahead and go into the closing of the meeting. Okay. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Also remember, if you haven't made an account on the website, morishamericans.com, make sure you go in there and make a free account. On that note, let's go ahead and close out and do the prayer. Please rise and face the east. Stand with our heels together, feet at a 45-degree angle, holding up 2 fingers on the right and 5 on the left. You do not need to repeat after me. Allah, bind our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers, divine creed and principles. We ask this in thy holy name and the 7 Elohim. Amen. Islam. Happy Holy Day, Moors. This meeting is now adjourned.
Happy Holy Day, family. Peace and blessings.